Hey, how you doing, Wayne? I just realized we're on here.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing all right. I was back my parents' way, because I'm like it's yellow back their way, and she had to go do a job today, so I was just back in Cumberland County their way for a little bit, but doing all right.
Good.
I just joined a couple minutes early because I know Zoom can be a little weird sometimes with letting you log in on time. So yeah, I figured there'd be people here in a couple minutes joining, but I was over Facebook. I didn't realize you had already opened the room already. So that works.
Okay.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Ben.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. You doing well?
I'm gonna go off video while I prep my area here. I gotta maintain the appearances of order.
Oh my goodness. Dax gave me a background. Hold the phone. That's really funny. Maybe this one. That's even better. What do you think?
Well, you're a little bit of that bossy person.
Yeah.
Diane, you were at the beach.
I was. My son was on here last with his buddies. They were doing all kinds of things. Ooh, what is that?
Is that Aaron?
That's Ben's iPhone. I'm not sure what that is.
Looks delicious. See this post till Saturday.
Yes, I did see that. Amanda and I were upset. Let's mute this.
Hello, Aaron.
Hello. I will only stay on camera until we get started because I just think this is weird. I don't think you're weird. I just don't like doing it.
Really?
Yes.
We don't mind seeing you, Aaron.
I know.
You should see what we see when you turn your camera off, though. It's just this weird black box with your name in it.
I know. My hair's getting so long.
You should braid it.
It's not quite there yet. I'm gonna have a man bun by the time I see you all.
Nice.
Lord help us.
Ashley, did you get my book yet?
No, I can't say I did. We'll see.
Oh, Mark and Ben are together. Can't hear you guys. There you are.
Oh, you can now. We are in the same location.
This is very good.
Or at least you think we are.
We are unsocial distancing.
Really?
And we're eating cake.
Anti-social distancing.
Where is that? How anti-social? Oh wow! This is a good time to be anti-social distancing.
Oh, okay. So just the boys and children. That's amazing.
You need to unmute if you want.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Hi, Chuck. Hi, Leslie.
It always takes me a minute to remember, like, if it says unmute, does that mean that they can hear me or not? And then I have to, like, keep thinking that. I don't know why it throws me for some reason.
Hey, Chuck. Nice shirt.
Shirt of king.
Nice.
Oh, crap.
Aaron, you look like you're in a padded cell. Where's your straight jacket?
Like this full screen. No, just
Make that full cell.
Okay.
Is that that? There.
What was that TV show where the person you only saw their top of their head over the fence?
Home Improvement. Wilson.
Yes, yes.
okay. Diane, do you want to say anything as we start here this evening, or?
No, I don't need to.
Okay. Mark, you want to say anything as we start tonight?
Okay. All I want to say is I'm really glad that Wayne has not only chosen to do this, but I'm really glad that we have him as a resource for this time. This is a month where what Wayne has to say, the years and just lots of experience with the Lord, with people devoted to this particular subject. I'm very thankful that we get this opportunity to have Wayne share these things. So I read over Wayne's notes again today, and I mean, I thought I did pretty thorough notes until I read Wayne's notes, and I'm just like, come on, Wayne, like seriously? So I don't know how you're going to get this into 8 by 8:30, Wayne, but I'd like to see you try. Nonetheless, really excited, and I don't plan on saying much because what I read in your notes was really strong stuff, so I'm going to really withhold myself as much as possible. Go.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the Zoom call tonight. I've been on the last month on the Zoom calls with this group, and Mark asked me to share Sunday. I'll be sharing this, well, it'll be Saturday night now rather than Sunday morning, but they also asked me to share this evening. And so I agreed to do that. And what I did at the beginning, I thought, I think like to have kind of a panel type thing, discussion. And I've asked Mark to be a part of that, and I've asked Diane to be a part of that. And they do have my notes. That's why Mark said he has my notes, and Diane also has my notes, my outline. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to share, and then I'm going to have Mark and Diane, they're welcome to join in any time that they care to or want to with their perspective if they've had some additional time ahead to think about it. And so, and then we also are going to open it up for any type of dialogue with you as well. So I just wanted tonight to be pretty interactive. As I thought about tonight and where we are right now with our lives, with the pandemic that we're experiencing, but also with the relationships that maybe I would say maybe we're lacking right now, or maybe not lacking, but they're looking differently. I guess I should say it that way, that they aren't lacking, they're just looking differently. And so that's what I want to share tonight about how we can maintain good emotional health through a pandemic like this, through a time of social distancing. But not only has it been social distancing, it has been physical distancing as well, which can be pretty detrimental to our relationships or to our lives. So I guess I'd just kind of like to start out by just saying we're probably all at a different place in where we are right now in our lives, at a different point, a different place. So I could ask, how's everyone doing? And take time to hear from each of you, but I'm not going to do that. I just would like to just make some comments about what it means to have some good emotional health at this point. When we're I guess I could say we're in a crisis. Hopefully we're coming out of that, which I think we are, but we are kind of in a crisis. And when we're in a crisis like this, it'll unearth multiple emotions in each of us. You know, many emotions will come forth, and Emotions will come forth that we may not even knew we had or even thought about it would be a part of us. But a lot of emotions, multiple emotions, are unearthed within each one of us. And through this time, some people are doing really, really well. And through this time, some people are not doing very well at all. I hear from both spectrums. I hear from those more that are some of that are doing really well, but I'm also beginning now to hear of those that are not doing very well at all. And so those are the kind of people I'm beginning to interact with pretty regularly. And so as those emotions are being unearthed within us, not only do they impact us, but it impacts our relationships. It impacts our relationships at home, in our marriages. It impacts our relationship with children, particularly if you have children that are home from school, not attending school now because of what's happening. And so that begins to impact a lot of the dynamics in the relationships. Some people are feeling very isolated. They're feeling very lonely. They're feeling frustrated. Some are feeling discouraged. And even some people maybe are at the point of feeling depressed because of what's happening. So I'm going to talk about some of these things, and then I'm going to end up this evening talking about how do we maintain good emotional health, and what's that look like in our relationship with Abba Father, and what does it look like in relationship with each other. Some people's lives become very chaotic when they get out of routine. We feel like there's a lack of normalcy. There's just that things aren't normal, in which they haven't been normal. And there's, while navigating extreme uncertainty. Seems like right now we're starting to get a little bit more of a certainty or a normalcy to it. But for quite a few weeks, there just wasn't much normalcy to it. Everything was just kind of up in the air. Didn't have much of a routine. And because of that, people didn't feel like they had much of normalcy. They didn't have much of routine. And so their lives became somewhat chaotic. And I would say all of our schedules became chaotic, but it didn't necessarily impact all of us the same way. Tonight, I want to talk about let me back up a little bit. There's 7 basic needs in our lives. And if you have a pen and paper and want to write it down, I'm just going to give them to you. They're just kind of the 7 basic needs of our lives. And I'm going to talk about one of them specifically tonight. But the first one is to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to have a sense of love and feel like they're being cared for, and that they are just appreciated and they're loved and they're cared for. Another one is to have a sense of protection, to feel protected. People want to feel protected. That's one of the basic needs, to be loved and to be protected. Another one that is a part of it is to be valued. People want to be valued. They want to have a sense of value as a person. Another one is to have a sense of power. In other words, that things are under control in their lives. That's the one I'm going to talk about more this evening. Some of the other ones I'm going to talk about Saturday evening. But the one I want to talk about tonight is more to have a sense of power in our life. And I'll explain that as we talk more about it. The 5th one is to be known. Everybody wants to be known. And that's not bad. They want to be heard. They want to be heard, for people to hear them, and they want to be understood. So the 7 is to be loved, to sense protection, to be valued, to have a sense of power, to be known, to be heard, and to be understood. That's the 7 things that are kind of the 7 basic needs that we have. The one tonight I want to talk about is to have a sense of power, to have a sense of control in our life. God has designed us, each one of us, And God has designed us and our minds to operate in a routine and to have a structure. And in that structure, it helps keep us calm and it helps bring us peace. In other words, there's a structure there. What we're going through right now, it seems like structure has been, for a lot of people, they feel like structure has been taken out of their lives. Feel like they didn't have any normalcy. They didn't have any structure. They didn't know what was happening. And so they felt like it was everything that, it was kind of a sense of everything's kind of out of control. And so in the extended period, because it was such an extended period, it wasn't just for like a couple of days or a couple of hours or even a week. This became day after day and then week after week. And it was like everything was just kind of, there was no routine as to what they could get a hold of. And since like they could get back, things could in their life could get back into control. And when that happens, it's like we get off center. Our lives are designed to kind of be on center. In other words, kind of a balance or like a sense of authority in our life or a sense of control. And when we didn't sense that, it's like our lives went off center. Our schedules went off center. Sometimes our relationships went off center. And people would get frustrated with that. As long as we have a level of connectedness to the Father and a level of connectedness to each other, we can keep our life pretty much on center. But our schedules and things that were happening around us, they were getting off center. And that's what would cause people then to get discouraged. It would cause people to feel like they were all alone and to feel like they were isolated and felt like they were very disconnected from each other. We're naturally designed to have things pretty much under control in our lives. I believe that's the way God designed us. Not that we have things so structured that he can't move us, but there's a sense of stability and structure. I believe God has designed it to be that way for each one of us, to be in our life at that level. And so to have a sense of self-control that keeps us calm, keeps us kind of settled, keeps us at a place of peace in our lives. When there's a normal routine that we have had a part of developing. I want to make that pretty clear. We have had a part in developing the normalcy in our life, our schedule in our life, that we have had a major part in developing that or putting that in place. And so all of us have a tendency to want to feel like we're in control. Now, you've probably heard people say, well, they're just a control freak. They're just got to control everything. And that's just not a healthy place to be. Well, that's not what I'm talking about tonight. It's not that I have to control everything and I have to control everybody and I have to control everything around me. That's not necessarily what I'm speaking about tonight. It's what I'm talking about. There's a sense of, I have a settledness in my heart. There's a peace in my life. I can come to a place of calmness. I can come to a place of peace, even though things around me are somewhat unsettled. I can get to a place of having a calmness and a settledness in my heart, in my life, in my thoughts. And as a result of that, I feel like I've had a part of putting that into place, and therefore there's a sense of control that I have in my life. I don't want you to think about, I'm talking about controlling everything around me and controlling everybody around me. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability to have a controlled, peaceful place in my heart that I'm able to come to. Things that are in control because we've scheduled it. We have planned it. We have developed it with God's presence in our life, relating to him, his strength. We have planned it. We've built it. We have developed it. This was what gives us a sense of being known for who we are. As a person, we talk about that a lot, about knowing who we are as a person and having things that we have planned it in our life. In other words, what is happening? When is it happening? Who's it happening with? That's what I'm talking about, a place where we can just be content in our life with what's happening around us. But when another person, a government, or an organization tells us what we can do and what we cannot do on somewhat of a regular basis, it feels like I now have given that person, that government, that organization control of my life. And I don't know about you, but most people don't like that real well. We want a sense that we have a control. Now, I think all of us on this call tonight would say, yeah, God's in charge, and I trust him. You'll notice the three that I listed there, I didn't include God in that list. I said another person or an organization or a government. We feel like when they tell us what we can and cannot do, then that puts us in a place where we don't feel like we're in charge of our life or we're in control of things that's happening, our schedule or anything around us. We have submitted that to someone else or to an organization or to a government. And what that does at times, that causes people then to go into panic in their life because they feel like they've lost control of what they're sensing or what they're feeling. And so it's just what some people are experiencing in their lives today. Mark or Diane, do you have anything you want to share before I go any further on my notes that I have, my thoughts?
I'm just like, go ahead, Diane.
No, I was saying I don't. Go ahead.
I'm thankful for that just line of thinking for the last 10, 15 minutes, because I don't think I've ever really thought of my life that way, even though I think it's accurate. I have a tendency to just do what I need to do, not realizing that a lot of what I am doing, I'm in control of. I'm setting that schedule. I'm creating my life. And you're absolutely right, Wayne. When we have a situation like we've been in for the last 2 months, we can't create our life ourselves.
Yep. Mark, you turned your mic off.
When you switch, okay.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I really had a great thought, and I already forgot it.
You were saying,
but
yeah.
What I was saying is that I just think it's really neat to think about the fact that prior to this quarantine, I was really living the life I was creating. Mm-hmm. And then to a certain extent, I had to either make the choice to change it or allow somebody else to dictate it. And as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, just because the conditions changed does not mean that I can't create my life. I can't have a sense of, I'm going to use the word control because I think there is a positive aspect to that word.
That's correct.
It just means that I have to work with the conditions that I'm currently living in and then still create that same, the promise God gave Adam and Eve. Be fruitful, multiply, have dominion. Okay, the conditions have changed in the earth for the last 2 months. Will you still be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion? I can decide I'm a victim to the circumstances that have changed, or I can say, no, I'm a son. And anytime the circumstances change, I'm still a son. And that means I can still create a life that I create, even if the conditions have changed. So I'm really thankful for just being able to intentionally think about this way. That's where I'm at so far.
Amen. Okay. Anybody else want to anyone else want to just share your thoughts at this point? Okay.
Wayne, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's right. It's okay.
I think one of the things I also think about when I think about control is when I try to maintain control of other people, how much energy I have to, give out in order to do that, right? And we actually think it's beneficial for us to control this person or control that person, but you're spinning so many plates. And as a parent, I think, wow, what is that day that I can actually not control the situation as much, because now I know I have poured myself into children who are going to make their own way, and I surrender over, because let's be honest, I control a lot of the stuff my kids do, right? And that's tiring. it's tiring to have to control all those aspects.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful thing about that, because you're raising children who are going to be sons, right? And be partners. But you have a partner when you can say, I don't have to control any of this, and you get to control your life. And I get to be a witness of the life that you control and that you build. And not that I become a spectator to it, but I become a witness. I become a witness of everything I got to pour into that other person. I don't have to be afraid of control. I don't have to be afraid of actually relinquishing control. It actually becomes a beautiful transfer of that time when, here is my son in who I am well pleased. Right. That moment.
So you're talking, Ben, you're talking a lot about releasing, empowering that person to be who they're designed to be, empowering that other individual. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a beautiful thing to do, is to empower others and not have to control.
Right. Yep.
Hey, Wayne, this is Reese here. Quickly, I also just thought about, and I'm not like trying to get political or anything either, but like thinking about, you mentioned like a person and a government or, organizations trying to control us is like something that, I think we all kind of innately resist. If you've ever been part of an organization or a person that tries to control you, you resist it. And then you mentioned that you intentionally didn't include the Lord in that. And it just kind of made me wonder, like, how much of this can just be in some ways an exercise of us, relinquishing that control, and kind of like Mark said, being okay with the circumstance and still flowing from like our resource and the provision of the Lord. And that's kind of what I think is my immediate thought is government's controlling people. People aren't being able to work. They're not, but like at the same time, like we derive our provision from the Lord. So I don't know, it's just something, that's where my mind's at. And I don't want to get ahead of you either, but I just that was interesting that I feel like this is an exercise for us to kind of give control over to, who has authority over us in some ways. So just thinking out loud, I guess.
Right. Thanks, Reese. Yeah, that's good, because we do want to come under submission to authority. So I'm not saying we shouldn't allow people to speak authoritative over us. But I think it's more of our response to it, of how we're responding to them when they're speaking to us or leading us or guiding us. And that's why I think I didn't include the Lord in that, because I think we do want to be very responsive to the Lord and his authority in our lives. And not that he controls us, but he is an authority in our life, and that's what we want him to be. However, some people do think that he does control them, and that's why they don't want to honor him or respect him in their life, is because they think the Lord is trying to control their life. But when we have a relationship with him, we realize that's not true. Well, as I'm talking tonight, this doesn't necessarily have to be to talk about the crisis we're going through. This can be of any type of a relationship that we have. And maybe you know someone that right now they're in a situation because of the crisis we're in. You've interacted or dialogued with people that are in feeling isolated or feeling depressed or discouraged. And this is a good time to interact with them in a healthy way. So how do we respond when we are faced with this kind of a circumstance? How do we respond to it when we're in the middle of what we're experiencing? How do we respond to it? And I've come up with kind of two aspects. Make a list. Make two lists. List things. One is a list of things I can control, and the other one is a list of things that I cannot control. In other words, when I'm using the word control here, that in other words that I'm building or I'm scheduling it or I'm planning it. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about control. So you have the two lists. First of all, make the list of things you can't control. Maybe you're even dealing with children who are kind of frustrated that they can't be with their friends or they can't do whatever, and they're feeling like they're kind of out of sync or they're out of schedule of what they really want to do. But you make a list of things that you cannot control. So you just make that list, make a list of things you can control. But let's talk about the things we can't control. Okay, when you make that list, then I just want to encourage us to do three things with that list. First of all, you ponder them. In other words, you think about them, you meditate on them, you think deeply about them, you think thoroughly about what it is of these things that you can't control. And you come to the point where you realize I don't have the authority over this right now. Someone else or something else does. After you ponder them, then you process them. In other words, how do you deal with these things you can't control? You've thought about it. Now, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to process them? And then the third thing of it is that I surrender them. I give up, I yield over those things to something else or someone else or to whoever is seemingly in charge at that point. In other words, when children can't go to school or the person can't go to work, or for me being the age I am, Ruth and I being the age that we are, you have children that you tell what they can do and not do. Ruth and I had children telling us what we should and should not be doing because of our age and they said, you're at that vulnerable age. I said, oh, really? I don't know when I got there, but apparently they thought I was there. But anyhow, you surrender
Wayne,
those things over to.
Wayne,
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The things that we cannot control,
yes.
We ponder them, process them, and then surrender them.
Yep.
I think that word process can be a pretty wide spectrum definition. I didn't know if maybe you could give a little guidance to what that looks like for you, or maybe some general, what does it look like to process things we cannot control? I think that would be helpful.
Okay. I think it's kind of it's a systematic, in other words, as I'm processing them, what's this really going to, how's this going to impact me? How's it going to affect me? What influence is it going to have on my life? What's going to need to change in my life? How is this going to impact me? How's this going to impact my family? And so, because these are the things that I cannot control. So what's that going to look like? Am I going to need to do things differently in my life moving forward? Those are the things what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how I'm processing them. Things will be different, and that's okay. I've thought it through, and now I'm realizing that things are going to be possibly could be very different. Some of the society says there's going to be drastic changes. I don't necessarily think there's going to be drastic changes, but there's some things that will change in our lives because of what we're experiencing, or what things, things that we cannot change. There are things that are going to change in our life, and I have to be able to think that through. How's that going to, and then the process is, how's that going to impact me moving forward? And then at that point, I'm willing to yield over that to basically yield that over to the Lord and allow him to deal with my heart and to move forward with things, and knowing that I can't control them.
Wayne, I have found that my children need me to do that with them too, and not just now, but specifically one of our children. Anytime the routine changes, anytime there's a surprise, it's very earth-shaking, and there is no just, oh, well, this is not an adventure to this child. It's like destructive. Like, I've taken the floor out from underneath them. And I've had to, like, let's just walk it through one piece by one piece, and we don't control this, have to open it up. And I found I can only do that with that child effectively. I'm trying to be really general. As much as I've let the Lord do that with me. Like, the more I understand walking it through with him, with inside of me, I'm able to do it with others, not just my kids, I'm sure, but other people too. Like, when things are shaking, if I've let the Lord walk me through, I can do it with them too.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's an illustration of, it's not just limited to what we're experiencing now. It can go beyond that into everyday activities of life. Some people can adjust more than others. The other thing I wanted to share about that is that after you have your list made, the things you can't control, you yield them or surrender them. You don't allow your thoughts to become bogged down in things that you cannot control. You don't allow your thoughts to become bogged down in that. Some people, that's what leads them to discouragement or depression. They become bogged down in things they can't control, and that becomes their focus. And then at that point, you move over to your second list of things that you have some influence in. They may be changing, but you've had some influence in processing it, of how it's going to change in your life. Somebody may have said something has to change, but then you're able to process it and say, okay, this is okay for me. I will make the adjustment. I will make the change. This will be a normal for me of what's happening in my life, what's happening around me. And when you're able to do that, you open yourself up to just all types of opportunity for innovation and creativity, because now you're focused on things that you can influence, that you can have a part in changing. You can open yourself up to all types of creativity. You can be very innovative. Take initiative, be innovative, and cause things to happen in your life and in your schedule. And this is also a way you can help your children as well. At this point, then I want to go into, this is times in our life where chaos can lead us to opportunity. Mark talked a little bit on Sunday morning about this with Steve and Randy, as they were talking on Sunday morning with the Who worship service. Because this, to some people, what we've been experiencing feels like chaos, or to some people, when they experience certain things in life, it feels like chaos to them. But when we have the two lists, and we've listed the things we can't control and processed that, and now we've listed the things we can control, we can have tremendous opportunity in front of us. One way I think this could work particularly with the church, is I think there can be a lot more depths of teamwork come forth as a result of being away from each other. And when we come back together, I think there can be a lot of teamwork happen. And it may even happen in not just in the leadership of the church or leadership of organizations. It can actually happen throughout the congregation. And so there can be a lot of teamwork developed. There can be increase in productivity. creativity, and new opportunities will unfold in front of us. Mark, I think Sunday you and Randy and Steve talked somewhat about the business aspect of that, but I think this can be true as in our personal lives, in our church, as well as other areas of our life. This can happen in relationships at work. This can happen in relationships in the communities we live in. This can happen at all kinds of places around us where there can be lots of productivity, creativity in our own life, and new opportunities will unfold in front of us. It causes maturity in our life and causes us to grow and develop spiritually, to understand our unique gifts and our unique talents. So there's lots of opportunities that can come forth in front of us as we're going through this time in our life where there may be lots of uncertainties. The next one I have listed is we're breaking old patterns of comparison and gain a true understanding of functioning in authority or in who we are. When I put in there comparison, we want everything to go back the way it used to be. And when used to be when you said that, you said, well, I want it to be like it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Now we want to say, I want it to be like it was 2.5 months ago. Guess what? May not. And that's okay. Are we willing and able to step forth and embrace new things around us that came out of maybe some chaos in our life, or some disappointment, or some frustration, discouragement, times when we might have felt all alone? Some good, productive things can come out of that. And so we want to be able to focus on where we're headed, not where we were, and we want to get back there as quickly as possible. I learned a little bit about this particular aspect of it soon. Within about the first week, I heard a gentleman speaking, and this is what he was talking about. Are we willing to embrace new ways of doing life? Are we willing to embrace new ways of doing ministry? Are we willing to embrace new ways of doing things? And when he said that, I thought, well, in what I'm involved with at Spring of Hope, how could I do that in a new or a better way? Well, I found out there is some new and better ways to do things. And so I just want to really challenge us to take the opportunities that have come to us during this time and not look at it as it's all bad. It was all got me all out of sync, put me into chaos, and now I'm stuck with this and I have to endure this. No, we can look at this as a time of opportunity and allow our creativity come forth and allow our unique gifts and talents to be developed in ways that may have not been developed without going through what we are experiencing right now. Diane, seems like you have something you want to share.
No, I just love that. I love that whole train of thought. It reminds me of what Leslie said a couple weeks ago when she was talking about a kingdom of increase.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't, as sons, this isn't meant to marginalize or reduce. It's meant to increase and grow and expand.
Yeah.
Which is extremely exciting to me.
Yep. Anyone else have anything you want to share at this point? This will cause us to step into some unknown territory, step into new opportunities in our life. And I just want to say at this point, this may lead you into a relationship with someone that is experiencing this time and looking at it as a time of discouragement, defeat, brokenness, feeling like they've just lost everything they've had. They're just kind of their life is in total chaos. This might be a time for you to step up and realize here's an opportunity for me to speak out life, hope, and purpose to those that are not experiencing it. This is not a time to give in to what we don't have. This is a time to give in to what we have opportunity in front of us and to push forward in it. It's a tremendous opportunity. This is a time to serve people. This is a time when you can just reach out to people and serve them. I believe that part of what the church is to serve people, not just each other, but to serve people outside of our local congregation, to be able to serve our neighbors, the people that we interact with. Not necessarily all the time on a regular basis, but even those that you may see are really struggling, this is an opportunity to reach out to them and to serve them exactly where they are in their life. The church, you and I, we're in a place and a position of bringing healing and have hope restored in their life. And let's don't miss this opportunity. This is an opportunity in front of us. Let's don't miss it. Let's don't become bogged down in what we can't control. Let's look at it as what can we control? What do we have authority in? And how can we make this an opportunity to move forward in our lives? It's such an opportunity, such a different way of looking at life right now. If you listen to the evening news, you go to bed very discouraged. If you listen to what your heart's telling you and you look at it from a position of relationship with people and a relationship with an energy from a relationship with Abba Father and Jesus, this is an opportunity in front of us that we can speak life and hope to people around us that may not have it. And so this is an opportunity for the church to have renewed healthy emotional peace in our life because of who we are as a person in our relationship with Abba Father. Any questions, any comments?
Can you give us kind of like what your definition of power would be in this context? So that we would, like, I think your fourth statement was we need to have a sense of power.
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of creating my own definition of what I think it means for me to have the power in my life. Would you be able to like define that for us so that we had something to work with?
Okay. Mark, I think I would put it into two words. The first one is a confidence. I have a confidence in who I am. I have a confidence in who God has made me. I have a confidence in my relationship with Abba Father, my relationship with Jesus gives me a confidence in who I am. And so I don't take it as a power that I have a control, but it's an authority in my life that there's a confidence in who I am. I don't need to sit back and feel like I'm controlled. I can step forth in confidence knowing who I am, and from the things that from my list of things that I can control in my life, there's a confidence in me to move forward in those areas. There's just a confidence. And then the other one is a courage to move forward in that confidence. That there's a courage in me. Not only is it a confidence in my relationship with the Lord, but there's a courage to move forward in it where I'm able to boldly speak to people. I'm boldly free to act in my life, in my interactions with people, in my interactions with life, in my responses to life all around me. There's a confidence and there's a courage. That's the authority. That's the power that I'm talking about. There's just a settledness. There's a peace in me. There's a boldness. There's a confidence, and there's a courage. That's what I'm talking about of the power. Okay. Any other questions? comments?
I have one.
Okay.
I have a friend, I used to work with him a long time ago, and just recently he started a podcast. His desire is to help people and encourage people with mental illness and depression and all these things. And I listened to his first episode yesterday. It's something I was excited for him, and I wanted to listen to what he was saying and just excited and supporting him. And I marveled how much he said, we don't know what's coming now. We don't know what's going to happen next. And that theme, I don't even know if he heard himself, but that theme was woven through his sentences over and over again. This, like I guess you said, the routine, like that was broken. And so now he couldn't see his future and was extremely, I guess, insecure now. And he tended to think we all felt that way because he feels that way. Everybody must feel that way. And I wondered, what do you typically say to someone when they're like, I don't know what they, like, I guess I want to hear what you would say. That theme was so strong in his words. I don't know if he was helping others as much as he was processing, you know, like that, yeah.
So you're asking, how would I respond, or what would I tell people that are struggling? Is that your question? Or people that are?
Well, until that point, I didn't realize how many people must feel that way right now. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to act in compassion toward them and to carry them with more compassion and sensitivity and awareness of how others experience times like this.
Right.
So when you're walking with people through this, mm-hmm. like, I don't want to become their new foundation. I don't want to become their new security blanket. What do you like? How do you walk them to the Father? How do we support them? I'll say we, not just you. How do we support them and buoy them up enough that they start to seek the Father for the real anchor that he
right.
is, you know?
Okay, I'm going to start by saying what I would not do. The quote unquote spiritual answer will be, well, don't trust yourself, just trust God and everything will work out. That I would not do. Now, ultimately, that's what I would be going, where I'd be going, but I would not say it that way. First of all, I probably would interact with them, dialogue with them, and find out really where the person is struggling, or where they're really hurting, or where their biggest disappointment is, or what's happening. And then I would just start to speak life over them. I'd start to speak some hope into their life about who they are, and that certain things that they're experiencing may not necessarily be true, but then help them to sort of think about what is some areas in their life where there is some positive things, where there is some hope, and then just begin to speak life into those areas of their life and let them begin to own some positive things in their own personal life. Let them help them to begin to own them, identify them, process them, and then start to believe some truthful things that's happening in their life. Because when a person gets to a certain area, they begin to believe everything that's happening against them. And so they lose focus on what is actually happening positive with their life. And so that's the areas, that's how I would begin to speak to them. In the middle of that, certainly I would be focused on what is Jesus doing, but I don't necessarily speak directly to that. I speak to what's actually happening in them personally and what's happening in their life. We will have opportunities to speak life into people.
You know, Wayne, I'm thinking about this question, but it actually speaks to a greater point. There is a power in controlling your own life. And when you're saying something like, I don't know what's coming next, you're actually speaking to the fear of that lack of power, right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
So that person's actually making that point that you started with. I actually think for us, it's okay to not know, right? Because I don't know if any of us really know what's coming next. And if we knew what was coming next, then well, play the stock market or the lottery or whatever. But there's beauty in not knowing what's coming next, because then there's faith built in it, and not faith in I just don't know, but there's trust and there's hope and there's all this stuff. Like I can't really place hope in something that I know is just it's predetermined. Like it's just gonna happen, right? That's not hope.
Right.
That's so there's actually a beauty in not knowing that. I think sometimes we pretend in like the spiritual way you're saying, like God's in control. Well, it's actually more beautiful to know him who is in control.
Correct.
More
Correct.
than that he is in control.
Right.
And I think I find more, like I just find more of my, I don't know the word, but like if I want to go to a strong tower of hope, I go to the one I know I can trust, instead of like, oh, you're gonna take care of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I kind of like to use the term God's more in charge than he is in control. In other words, I can trust that he's in charge of my life, and what comes, it's okay. I can trust that. I can have a hope in that. Yeah.
This friend to date is not a believer. So I feel like the Lord is pulling at him. And so I think there are beautiful opportunities in this, especially for these ones that don't know the Lord yet and they have real pain. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that, I like that, Diane, the ones that don't know the Lord yet.
Yeah.
They're going to get there.
Yeah.
And we have hope for that, or believe that. Yeah. I think it's a little bit like Ben said about mature. I think Mark said this Sunday morning. It's not the immature, it's the premature.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wayne, I really like this. I really appreciate the way you've laid this out, because it makes me think that not only like the buckets of what I can control and I can't control, but then fitting in what do I want to have influence in, versus, because there are things that we can have influence, but we're not willing to do what it takes to have that influence. So we bucket it into I can't control it. And so like identifying those things accurately and then walking through that process of pondering, which is so important. Like, how much is this for me? Am I called to do this thing? Because there's so many things we can give ourselves to. Like, is this one important for me to do? Is this the right timing of that? And like, so that process of pondering and processing and then surrendering over and sort of having a plan. Because I think, you can find yourself, I can find myself with something that, might irritate me or make me have angst, but what am I willing to do about it? And so as you walk through this process and put things into a bucket, knowing like there are things that we can have influence in and we should have influence in. And then sometimes if we what is that first step? What are those action steps? And then can we get comfortable with that is my action step, and I don't have to solve the problem tonight, but I can take this first action step and that's my plan. And then I can still find peace in that thing,
Correct.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Leslie.
Hey, Wayne, could I ask another question as well?
Yeah, yes.
Just wondering too, kind of going off of what Diane said as well, like, is there a way that you tried to interact with folks that, through kind of these, wavy times that kind of come down through that victim mindset? Because I guess I'm seeing a lot of that right now. People in the camp of, well, nothing was going my way before and now this hits me. And, now I can't do this and now I can't do that. And what's your kind of guidance? I guess, again, kind of from Diane's perspective, that outsider trying to shed a better light and trying to encourage folks through specifically that mindset that nothing will go right. They're not even sure what's going to happen next, but they know it's bad. That's kind of the predetermined mindset.
Right. Well, when a person feels as a victim, they feel like they are things are kind of really out of control. They're a victim of other people's actions, behaviors. And at that point, they kind of lose all of their own ability. They lose their own sense of control. They just kind of feel like they are just now a victim of everybody else. They're a victim of life. And so at that point, Reese, what I would do is I would just kind of begin to talk about who they are and get them to go from the kind of the two lists out of what they can't do over to the side of there are some things in their life they can. May look very different than what they expected to look like, but there are things in their life. And so you try to help them to begin to figure those types of things out, of areas where they can begin to have some authority, where they can have some confidence, where they can again have courage that some of the things that they want to do or where they want to be in life can come to pass. They're not a victim of everything in their life. They may feel that, it may feel that way, but then you have to want to begin to help them to identify areas where they do have some abilities. They do have some things that can work good for them. They're not everything in their life is working against them. So you have to get them to a point where they begin to see things in their life where they can have some authority.
That's good. Yeah. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah.
We both have something to say here. Go ahead, Ben. I think I want to actually go back to your point about chaos breeds opportunity.
Yep.
Because I mean, you actually find out who are going to be the innovators in these kind of times. You see it in companies right now. Who's innovating? Who's the ones that are surviving? Who are the ones that were so stuck in their old ways that they can't move? So I think the thing that you also find that in these chaos times is you don't only find out what you can control, but you also find out what controls you and what you're actually bound to that prevents you from innovating, or you actually find out what are the things that I need and things that I don't need. Right? Like I found so many things. We were just having dinner. We were talking about like, hey, what's the stuff that you've saved so much money on because you're not consuming it like crazy because you just don't need it, right? And these are the times where you could actually define and start to purge things out of your life that allow you to then streamline and then allow you to innovate. Because a lot of times we can't innovate because there's just so much fat attached. You know, you've just built in so much, like so many layers to the thing that you're doing that you can't see, like, where's the muscle? Where's the lean muscle? What's the thing that we can do? How can we be nimble? You know, how can we be quick? You know, and these are those times that allow us to do it. So it's not all a bad time. And, you know, you have control to figure out a lot of stuff that can make you better.
Well, I think what happens, Ben, is we go into comparing and we want to go back rather than say what's here and where am I going. We want to compare back and we want to go back because we want it to feel comfortable. When we do, I shouldn't say we want to do that. I'm saying some people want to do that. And then at that point, they miss all the opportunities in front of them. They miss the challenges.
It's the Lot's wife syndrome, right?
Like, that's correct. Yep.
What's back there? And next thing you know, you're not looking forward to what's coming.
Yeah. Mark, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Leslie said this, and if not, we got the thought going in me, but I think she did say this. Just because we don't have control of everything.
Hey, Mark, I think you need to get a little closer to his mic.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. Yeah. Something along the lines of just because you don't have control of the thing doesn't mean you still don't have influence over that.
Correct. Yeah.
I really like that thought. And I think we can remember that thought, especially right now. So yeah, we don't have control over what the governor decides is good and not good, what we can do and can't do, what businesses can open and not open, what churches can do and can't do. But that doesn't mean we can't influence that thing. And I'll tell you what, to be able to differentiate those two things, it's either we have control or we don't. And if we don't have control, then we're out, you know? Yeah. And I think that's a really mature way of looking at this current reality to say, okay, I might not be able to dictate everything that's going on, but I can still have influence over it. So what's my part to play in this current reality that can potentially bring about a greater sense of confidence and courage, like you were talking about earlier. And as you were talking about that, like I was thinking to myself, like, in my opinion, that's what prayer is. Prayer is my opportunity to influence a thing I don't have control over. Like, what greater way for me to release tension, to release stress, anxiety, fear, discomfort about a thing that's controlling me, so to speak, by praying? What greater influence could I have than that? And asking the Lord to be involved, or how can I better see, or how can I better be a part and involved in what currently is happening here?
Right.
So I'm really thankful for that perspective, Leslie.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Good. Well, the other part I want to talk about is in all of this that we have, make certain that we have a good, solid foundation in our life. That's so important. Jesus said in John 8:31 and 32, so Jesus was saying to those Jews who had believed him, if you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. That was Jesus talking as he was saying that. Through what we're experiencing right now, our foundation is, the foundation of our life is being tested. Our foundation of what's under us is being tested. If people are really struggling through a lot of this, probably their foundation was not very strong. If they're really being victorious through this time, they're either doing it from strong white knuckling it, or they have a true solid foundation in Jesus Christ. And Jesus said, if you continue on my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. I think this has really put us to the test. We have to really be intentional about living from the word of God and allowing the principles of the word of God to be the very foundation of our life, and the relationship with Jesus to be the very foundation of our life. Can I trust him? Can I trust Abba Father? Is our foundation in our structure that we have built, or is it in our relationship with Abba Father? Now, certainly we've had a part in it, and we need to have a part in it. But is our foundation in Jesus Christ? If it's built on anything other than that, it'll probably become very shaky. And so maybe that's an area where we help people to go to in their life. Humanity is deeply rooted in relationship and connectivity to God and to people. And as I'm thinking about what I'm going to share Saturday night, I'm thinking a lot about being connected to other people as well as being connected to God. So not only is it based on a foundation in Jesus Christ, that's where our foundation is. Humanity is deeply rooted in our connectivity and our relationships with each other. That is so critical. And that's why I think it's been so good this month to be talking about relationships with each other, relationship with God and relationship with each other. It is so critical. Our deep humanity is deeply rooted in our relationship with each other. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that Saturday evening. So from an emotional standpoint, we must think, feel, and operate through Christ to have a sense of stableness in our life. I believe that's really what I'm talking about here tonight, is having a stableness in our life. That even though there's chaos may come, we can look at that as an opportunity, not a place of defeat or discouragement, but a place of opportunity. So even though we've been mandated for a while, at least, to stay home or stay away from each other, or at least 6 feet from each other. Or if we get closer than that, we have to put a mask over our face and I can't even see you smile. Even though that's been a part of it, we have been able to interact like this, and so we can connect. And I see most of you are connecting, and at least Mark and Ben, they're really connecting there tonight. So, and I think Saturday night, we're really encouraging people to start to connect, particularly in like small groups. And I think that is very, very good. And so it is about building a solid foundation of trust and security, which I believe is very important to having deep-seated relationships with each other. And so to be able to have trust is the foundation of our relationship with each other and with God. Scripture talks about we are built up in Christ, Colossians 2. I'm going to read the first 7 verses, Colossians 2. Just want you to listen, and then I'm going to make some comments on it. It's Colossians 2, the first 7 verses. It says, "For I want you to know how great a struggle I have on your behalf and for those who are at Laodicea, and for all those who have not personally seen my face, that their hearts may be encouraged, having been knit together in love and attaining to all the wealth that comes from the full assurance of understanding, resulting in a true knowledge of God's mystery, that is Christ himself, in whom, in Christ, are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. I say this so that no one will delude or deceive you with persuasive arguments. For even though I am absent in body, nevertheless I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good discipline and the stability of your faith in Christ. Therefore, as you have received Jesus Christ, the Lord, so walk in him, having been firmly rooted and now built up in him and established in your faith, just as you were instructed, and overflowing with gratitude. This is just I shared these verses with a group of pastors several weeks ago about understanding the wisdom of the Lord and knowing that in a relationship, Paul was talking to the people here, but he was talking about having a relationship with Jesus, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, so that you will not be deceived. I think we want to look at where we are as this is an opportunity to have a true relationship with Abba Father, be strengthened in him, be encouraged in our relationship with him, knowing that our wisdom comes from him, and in him are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. That's a relationship with the Lord. That's the foundation. We are built up in Jesus Christ. So to have a healthy relationship with people, trust must be a foundational factor in our life. And at this point, as I'm reading these verses, our foundation is in Jesus Christ. That's where our foundation is. And then our connectedness to each other. And Paul says some of these people never saw his face, but he still was encouraging them. So even though we're apart from each other, we can still be an encouragement to each other. So we are firmly rooted and built up in Jesus, and then our relationship with each other springs forth from that connectedness with Abba Father. And so that's where I just want to leave you tonight is this is a good place. We are at a good place in our lives. It may feel chaotic. For some people, it may feel really chaotic, but we're at a good place. Be encouraged with where you are. Be strengthened with where you are. Know who you are. Know what's happening around you, and be encouraged with what's happening in your life. There's lots of opportunities in front of you. Don't miss the opportunities. Take advantage of them. I did it in an hour and 10 minutes, Mark. Okay, anybody else?
How you got through all that quick, man? That's amazing.
Oh, I don't always speak real long, Mark.
That's what happens when you don't have a microphone. You don't go as long. That's the key.
Saturday night, I'll have a microphone.
Oh,
Okay.
we should have
Chuck, do you have
started
anything?
earlier.
Chuck, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, that the last part really made me think of how important it is to have an eternal perspective.
Okay.
And even as you were reading through those verses and talking about hidden mysteries and treasures and, you know, tying all that to your last point of the foundation, you know, making sure our foundation is solid. I always go back to sometimes when I get really stressed about life is, am I looking at this from an eternal perspective that I think the Lord's looking through. So even though if things aren't going good for me in finances or opportunities, or I don't perceive them that way, can I step back and look at a foundational perspective of eternity, and that really the time period I'm in's, you know, it's just a piece of time right now, you know, and just knowing that, you know, things will work out for good, that I am a son, that I'm going to be in an eternal, you know, in eternity. Maybe things aren't where I want them to be right now, but that's just a period of time. So as you were mentioning that last part, that's what I was thinking through.
Okay.
And I don't know what Reese and Mark are laughing about so much. They must be on, you know, this Zoom has a private chat function, and like for the last 10 minutes, they're having a conversation that I can't wait to hear about.
Mark's drinking.
That's up.
I keep that all off of my computer. I just want to see.
I
just
don't
want
know
to see
what it
the
is.
people. Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to share? Ask, say?
I have something real quick.
Okay.
When you were talking about the foundation this afternoon, when I was looking over your notes, I kept thinking about how often, like, especially, I don't remember who all, but like I keep coming across in scripture this word of like diligence or focus or stay single-minded. Like we're constantly counseled in scripture to diligently guide our mind toward good. I'll just agree. Like we're given whole lists in scripture, and there's verses all over the place. Like even in Philippians 4, he's like, whatever is good, you know, whatever is true, whatever is lovely, if it's of a good reputation, focus on it. Like give it your full attention. And in the 2 Peter, he says diligently. Like it's like this arresting sense of, like where I don't remember where in scripture right now. This just came through that if you're double-minded, you're James, right? Double-minded, you're unstable in all your ways. And it seems to me like that's one of the ways we can stay like really emotionally calm. If we don't have lots of double-mindedness about what we're spending our time thinking about and focusing on, like if we're constantly directing our minds back to the goodness and the beauty of the Lord and everything he's doing and all the, I don't know, like I could go, but like I feel so stirred about like that urgent word of like, diligently focus, give it your attention, don't get distracted. Even somewhere in Colossians it says like don't get distracted, don't get intimidated. Like it's almost like put on really specific focus. Like I need a thesaurus. But there's really determined counsel there, isn't there, to like give your mind dedicated focus, and don't let all the other stuff, don't dwell on it, maybe I should say. Put it in its proper perspective, and then get yourself aligned again with the perspective of the Lord and stay there. It seems like if we follow that counsel, it will secure our soul, will be well rooted and stabilized on his nature, on who he is, right? Yeah.
Very good.
It just seemed really like that urgency. I feel that diligent focus, you know?
Okay. All right. Let me pray for you with you before we close out here tonight. There's Aaron came back. Let's pray. Father, thank you for each one that's on this call tonight, and just ask that what was shared here tonight, we will take as a challenge to us, as opportunity in front of us, and our lives can be added to, and increase can happen because of who you are and what you're doing in our lives. So I just ask you to bless what was shared here tonight, and may it bring increase in everyone's life. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Wayne.
Yep. We'll see all you Saturday night.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
We'll see you
Okay.
then.
All right.
See you then.
See you.
Bye.